Stuck in your homes, unable to sell. Jack in Islington, is this affecting you as well, Jack? Good morning.
Good morning, Nick. Yes, I mean, we live in a one-bedroom apartment. It's considered a new build, although it's about 4 years old now.
Yeah.
The building is under 18 metres in height, but of course, when the government guidance changed in January, we became affected by that. One of the reasons I wanted to call in, Nick, is that this is a much bigger problem, and I think people are really understanding. When the government guidance changed in January, the number of people affected by this EWS1 change went from 300,000 to more than 3 million, it's estimated.
How do you get those figures? Just out of interest, where did you get those figures?
It's from This Is Money magazine.
Okay.
I forwarded it over to your research, and I think they've taken a look at that.
Great,
But
thank you.
it's affected not just us, who obviously want to sell and at the moment can't. It's also affecting those people who need to remortgage. So it's a much wider
God, yes, of
issue.
course you can't do that, can you, either? No, of course you can't.
No.
Yeah.
And it's widely being misapplied by lenders, who are not lending on these type of properties. And, the process that was created by the Royal Institution of Chartered Surveyors is not working, and they're failing to address those issues.
And what does it... Are you seeking to remortgage or sell?
We're looking to sell. We're at that time of our lives where we want to upscale. Living in a one-bedroom flat over lockdown has not been the most wonderful experience. We essentially want to look to start a family. So, we were quite shocked when we had 3 estate agents over to value our property, and all 3 of them kind of shook their hands of it and said, great apartment, probably worth a good amount of money. However, we're not willing to sell it to you because you haven't got this form. And
lastly, do you have any idea? I mean, one of the lawyers there, the lawyer there, suggesting these can cost tens of thousands of pounds. Have you explored how much a form might cost you?
No, at the moment we're being told by our, the agency that manage our building that we are so low risk because we're only 5 stories tall that we're not even scheduled to have the survey. I think you reported yesterday that the current wait times have been scheduled for up to 42 months.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll be lucky if that even transpires for us.
What do you plan to do?
Well, we're stuck, like Rachel said in one of her earlier interviews, we're prisoners in our own homes. We're trying to put as much pressure on, over the past 6 weeks or so. I've been really trying to put a lot of pressure on and speak to local MPs and media outlets just to try and pick it up. And it's great that LBC have picked it up, but it's a big issue and it's affecting far more people than I think a lot of people realise.
Well, I can't wait for the Housing Secretary. As you may be aware, Jack, during COVID-19 there's a sort of ever-revolving offering of senior cabinet members who do the rounds. Today it was the Business Secretary, but just as soon as we have either housing or environment, I think we'll get into that with them and see if we can spur this on. It does seem desperate. I didn't know we're looking at 3 million people. That's a fair chunk of the population. Jack, thank you. 7 to 9 the time. To Dartford, Joe. This affects you, Joe. Good morning.
Good morning, Nick. Thank you for highlighting this ridiculous new barrier to anyone living in an apartment.
Yes.
My daughter is selling her ground floor flat in Ingress Park in Greenhide. It's a lovely development.
Okay.
It's less than 5 years old.
Near Bluewater, presumably, is it?
That's right.
Yeah, I know where you are.
It's got absolutely no cladding at all.
Right.
It's perfect for a first-time buyer, but it's been given a 0 valuation because it hasn't got this form. It's actually under offer, and she can't even remortgage to get a better rate while she's there because valuers, mortgage lenders won't give the buyer the mortgage.
But there must be... Is it in the lift that there's cladding, or there must be something somewhere?
Well, I've looked at the building. I can't see it from the outside.
No.
It's about 5 stories high, but she's in the ground floor, so her flat should never have been judged as needing this form because there's no cladding on it at all, and it's ground floor, so it's no fire risk.
What is she going to do?
If this form is about fire risk, it's ridiculous.
What's your daughter going to do, Joe?
Well, she has a buyer who's waiting to see whether the form is going to be forthcoming. The management company, First Port, they don't seem to think it's a priority, but it's the banks that should be changing their conditions of lending because they're the ones that are holding it up. This is not a government form. This is something that's come out, as you rightly said, from the RICS.
Yeah, that's the Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors. But bear in mind, RICS is operating on behalf of the government. It is enforced by, so although it is an RICS recommendation, it is enforced by the government. That's what's holding your daughter up, and that's why the banks won't advance the money to her prospective buyer. Joe, thank you. Please excuse me moving on. I did say this affects a lot of people. It's hardly surprising there's 3 million of you. Jonathan in Bow. Jonathan, your story. Good morning.
Hi there. Good morning, Nick. How are you doing?
Yeah, good, thank you.
Good. We're in a less than or lower than 18-metre flat as well in East London, in Tower Hamlets.
It's extraordinary. Go on.
Yeah, it's a one-bed flat. I think the thing that's probably stings a little bit more for some of those involved is that it's a shared ownership property.
Right.
So that means that we got involved in a Help to Buy scheme.
Right, okay.
So that's quite a difficult one, that you kind of got involved in good faith in this scheme to Help to Buy, and then you end up in, as if your previous caller mentioned, the kind of prisoner in your own home.
Right,
so it's quite a tough one. One thing I wanted to mention is I've spoken with Ricks, because we've been trying to leave for about 12 months.
Right.
And Ricks has kind of informed me that, look, the EWS1 form was never intended for the purpose that lenders are currently using it for.
Right.
And that's a main part of the issue. So the EWS1 form is mostly for 18-metre properties and above, and lenders are now using it for lower than 18 metres for a reason to not lend, and that's basically blocking up the whole system.
Oh, that's contrary to what the lawyer said, of course, isn't it? That as of January it was brought in for all properties. But you think it's just reluctance by banks and others to put forward funds? That
seemed to be the position from Ricks when I spoke with them.
Okay.
At the time.
All right, that's interesting. Well, you'll want to hear, Jonathan, good luck. So you're trying to move on, are you, in your shared own, presumably? Is that what...
We are, yeah. So we live in a Peabody property. They're our freeholder. So interesting that they've been in contact with you. The other thing is that, of course, that you go through cycles of trying to find buyers.
Yeah.
And with your freeholder, you actually have to pay them to market your property.
Oh, right.
And to get it revalued again. So we've paid up to, I think it's about 650 quid just to try and get the property sold with our freeholder.
Oh, Lord.
Despite the fact they're in the knowledge that we don't have an EWS1 form. So if a buyer does come, we're at a very high risk that a lender won't be found.
That you can't get the money. You want, Jonathan, good luck. That's all. There's such empty words, but I don't know what else to say. You'll want to hear from my next caller, I think, as much as any of us. Michael in Manchester. Now, you're a barrister in this area, Michael. Is that correct? Good morning.
That is correct. Good morning, Nick.
Good morning. Right, what is your... tell me, is this 18 metres important in any way, or after January did it affect everybody, irrespective of where you're sited?
With the latest information, it does affect more people.
Around 3 million. What is your advice to them?
Well, there was an interesting article in The Guardian on the 17th of July.
Right.
Explaining that a lot of leaseholders were being billed up to £115,000 each to remove the Grenfell-style cladding by the owners of the properties.
Right.
That sort of like adds insult to injury.
Yeah.
As it's public information in the newspaper, there's a house in Manchester city centre in the trendy Ancoats district called Connect House.
Yeah.
And 5.2 million cost to make the property safe.
Good God.
And they were starting to bill all the flat owners, the leaseholders.
Can they do that legally?
They can.
Right.
In the same way that they can charge you silly money whenever you want to make any change if you're a leaseholder on a house.
I see.
Historically, the freeholders always made a lot of money. If you wanted to do an extension or do a roof, or make any change to the property, you needed the freeholder's permission, and even for a letter they could charge you money. And that's just how the statute is currently.
What is your advice? Hopefully you've heard some of the callers and the situations in which they find themselves. What is your advice to them then, Michael?
Well, surprisingly, I would have expected a lot of solicitors, barristers and other legal professionals to start taking on claims. We have started looking into the possibility that the builders, the companies that built the famous large...
Yeah, the people who actually put the buildings up, yeah.
Yeah, they could have a liability. I've got to be careful what I say because we're currently putting a very large group together of several hundred clients to do a class action against some of these larger companies under their insurance policy because they have a liability and they have a responsibility for building properties that are safe.
We're approaching the last few seconds together for now. Michael, is there like a sort of website where people are getting together or some sort of group that's being formed?
We're currently putting that up online in the next few days.
Okay.
And we're so sure of the research we've done over the last few months. We think that there's potentially a very good claim against these large companies, which would give a lot of relief to clients that qualify. Yeah.
When can I talk to you again as regards when that website or group will be live? End of the week, next week? When would be best for you?
End of the week will be great.
Talk then. Good luck, Michael. Thank you. A barrister in that area. So if you're... And still people are ringing in, others, Bradley and Stephen and others and John. We will get more details on that, and we will return, because there are 3 million of you affected, and you are mostly blighted, property blighted. Right.